If you like farming equipment and animals that you might find on the farm, you are really going to enjoy today's live stream. We are back together. Hello everyone. This is English Addict coming to you live from the birthplace of the English language on a very wet and miserable day. Of course, it is England. We are back, everyone. We are here together again. I hope you are having a good one. I hope your day is going super duper. I really do. Hi, everybody. This is Mr. Duncan in England. How are you today? Are you okay? I hope so. Are you happy today? I hope you are feeling good on this lovely, lovely Sunday. Despite the fact that outside it is grey and quite murky. We have had so much rain here in the UK over the past couple of days. Yesterday we went to a place far away from here and the weather was quite good. We thought the weather would be bad, but driving back last night we had to drive through some of the worst weather I've ever seen, especially whilst driving. I suppose two of the worst things that can happen if you are driving, especially at night, is poor visibility caused by fog and rain that is falling down as you are driving along in the dark. And I have to say, it was not much fun. Anyway, my name is Duncan. I talk about the English language. You might say that I am an English addict. I am one of these, and I have a feeling maybe you are one of those as well. We are back together on Sunday. Already we are through the first week of September. September is already going by very, very quickly. Yesterday, someone mentioned that word. You know the word I'm thinking of. That festival that comes up at the end of the year. Someone mentioned it yesterday, but I'm trying my best not to think about it just yet. For me, it is a little bit too early to start talking about. So I promise that I won't mention it this week, even though I did mention it last week, briefly, on the live stream. We are back together, and yes, I know I was a little bit late today, for which I apologise, but I have my reasons. But I'm not going to tell you what the reason is, because I can't. I don't want to. It's too private when you think about it. It's one of those things that you don't want other people to know about. We all have to have a little bit of privacy, don't you think? By the way, coming up today also, he is back with us today. Yes, Mr. Steve will be with us today. He will be joining us in around about 15 minutes from now. So you don't have to wait very long because I was late arriving today, but Mr. Steve will be on time. He will be with us at 2:30. I'm sure he has a lot to talk about because we did have a very busy day yesterday. We went to a place that has a lot of significance for Mr. Steve. It is in fact the place where he was raised as a child. We went there yesterday because they were holding their annual agricultural show. So we went there yesterday. Needless to say, I did a lot of filming yesterday. We walked around quite a lot and I did film lots of the sights from the agricultural show that we went to yesterday in the place where Mr. Steve spent his childhood. We will be talking about that as well. We have a couple of sad anniversaries to mention today as well. I don't want to make it all sad, but sometimes you have to address these things. If you address something, you talk about a certain issue or a certain situation. So sometimes you must face a certain thing. You must talk about a certain subject. You have to address a situation or a thing or a subject or a topic. So we will be talking about a couple of rather sad anniversaries today. One of them very personal indeed. And we have a lot of things to talk about today. We are looking at public transport today. Do you ever use public transport? Now, I suppose you can think of many different types of public transport in your area. I live in the countryside, so because of that, because we live very far away from many of the large towns, we have a very unique problem here, which is it's quite difficult to get from one place to another unless you have a car. But we do have some public transport in the area in which I live. And we will be talking about public transport today. Mr. Steve will be with us soon, so don't worry, don't panic. Can I say a quick hello to the live chat? Hello, live chat. It's nice to see you here today on the live stream. Vitas, congratulations, you are first on today's live chat. Vitas, you are first on today's live chat. Congratulations to you. Also we have, now I know that you are only staying for a short time, so maybe you have already left, maybe you've gone already, but we will still say hello to Luis Mendez is here today. But I have a feeling he may have gone already. Beatrice is here. Hello, Beatrice. By the way, can I just say that Mr. Steve has gone. He's gone to a lot of trouble to have your paintings framed. So that's what Steve has been doing over the past couple of days. He's been very busy sorting that out. So we will be displaying your paintings somewhere in the house. Also we have Maurizio, Marianne, Hamda, Franco, Marcia, Jurshid. Also, who else is here? Julie. Hello, Julie. Nice to see you here as well. Palmyra, many of our lovely regular viewers, and of course quite a few new ones as well. I've noticed over the past 2 or 3 weeks we have quite a few new viewers joining as well. Hello also to Marianne Merlot-Ganu. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I have a feeling I haven't. Mr. Duncan and Mr. Steve, your English accent is perfume for us. After 5 days of intensive training with Scottish men, I love the British accent. Of course, yes, because you were talking last week about communicating with people in Scotland, and we mentioned at the time, we did say that it can be difficult to understand the accent in Scotland when Scottish people are speaking English, because they might speak very fast or sometimes the words are not clear. But as I said last week, if you don't understand, just ask the person to repeat themselves. Never be afraid. because perhaps, maybe you might end up with quite a serious situation taking place. So if you don't ask the person to repeat themselves, maybe they've said something quite important. So never be afraid, never worry about asking someone to repeat themselves. You can just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said. Could you say it again, please? Could you repeat yourself? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What did you say? What did you say to me? What was it? Please, can you repeat what you said?" So never be afraid of asking someone to repeat what they've said, because sometimes people do say things that are very important. So you have to make sure that you are not agreeing to something that normally you wouldn't. So never be afraid to ask. Pedro Belmont is here today. Hello, Pedro. Nice to see you here as well. Inaki is here. Loretta. Hello to Loretta. Loretta. Your name is Loretta. Some people call you Laurie. Hello again. Hi, everyone. At the moment, I am in Vilnius for the first time with Giovanni. It's a really beautiful city. Well done. It's nice to see so many of you are travelling around, seeing different parts of the world. Unfortunately for me, at the moment, we can't plan any travels because Steve is very busy with his job. I am very busy with all of this. So unfortunately, it is not easy to do it at the moment. We might travel somewhere next year. Of course, at the moment we are planning the big rendezvous. Another rendezvous with you will take place next year. So I have to say I am very much looking forward to that. Jorina is here as well. Hello, Jorina. Hello, Mr. Putin. It's nice to see you back here again. I know you're not the real one. I know it. I'm pretty sure. Quite sure. Can I just explain something? Mr. Steve made some bread this morning, but he's put many different types of seed in the bread. And now I'm noticing that in my mouth there are lots of pieces of seed stuck between my teeth. And it's very distracting, to be honest with you. Not that I'm complaining, because Mr. Steve's bread is very nice. It's lovely, in fact. In a few moments, we will be talking about scars. Scars. It's an interesting word, the word scar. It is a word that we often use in our day-to-day lives when we are talking about maybe something concerning our body, maybe something we can see, or of course something we can feel as well. So quite often we will talk about scars in many different ways. So you can use it literally, and you can also use it figuratively as well, which is something we are going to look at right now. So let's have a quick look at the word scar, shall we? Here we go. And as a way of helping you, look at that. That's a big scar. The word scar is normally used to describe a mark left by a wound on the skin. So maybe if you have some sort of injury, something that harms your skin, something that damages your skin, quite often there will be a scar left behind where the wound or the cut has healed up. Quite often, if you burn your skin, it's one of the worst types of wounds to have because it stays painful for a very long time. Have you ever done it? Have you ever burnt your skin? It's horrible. It's a horrible feeling. It can hurt for a very long time, and sometimes it will swell up into a large blister, and then afterwards you are quite often left with some sort of scar left behind because of it. So the word scar is often used as a way of describing a wound that is left behind. Scar. The healing process will quite often leave a scar behind. So the scar is something that is left after the wound has healed up. As I mentioned just, the word can be a noun. So you can use the word scar as a noun. It is the actual thing. So the photograph you are looking at there is the scar. It is the actual thing. So that is the noun. And of course we can use the word scar as a verb, which is the action of scarring someone. Maybe you cause or create a wound that then becomes a scar afterwards. So it will turn into a scar. So you can scar a person as well. You are leaving a mark on them which never disappears. We can use the word scar figuratively. So figuratively we can use the word scar quite often as a way of describing a long effect, something that affects a person over a very long period of time. For example, a bad event might leave a scar on a person. So maybe if you have a bad experience, maybe something that is traumatic. The word traumatic. Something happens that is terrible. And quite often when we talk about things being traumatic, quite often it is an unpleasant situation and it can leave a scar. Not necessarily on your body physically, but quite often we can also use the word figuratively as well. We can say that you have a physical scar. So the scar is real. It is something that can be seen on your skin. I think on my body I have some scars. So maybe you can't see it, but just there is a small scar on my hand. In fact, I have one or two scars. I have one on my body, but I can't show you where it is because it's in a very naughty place. But I had an operation when I was born many years ago. I was born with a tumour on my body, down there somewhere. I'm not saying where, but it was around the back on one of my buttocks, and I had a large tumour, and they had to cut the tumour off. So I was actually born with this thing. Horrible. And they removed it, and I still have the scar on my body down there, just down there. I still have it. I still have the scar on my body. And finally, and I know that this is not going to show on the screen properly, Oh, by the way, psychological scar. So we have a physical scar that you can see and a psychological scar. The psychological scar is something that harms you psychologically. So it's something that you had to go through in your life that has left you feeling upset, nervous, or afraid of something. Maybe a situation that you found yourself in that was very difficult to deal with. It can leave a scar on your mind, psychological scar, something you have to go through. And I know this is wrong, it's coming up wrong on the screen, but you can also be scarred for life. The mark that is left will never go away. You have been scarred for life. So that also can refer to a psychological thing or a physical thing. So we might say that the person is scarred for life if the mark never goes away. You might also be scarred for life if something happens in your life that makes you upset, or maybe something you can't face again. So there it is, a very simple word, but it is a word that can be used in many different ways. Talking of being scarred, here is a person coming in a few moments. He might leave all of us feeling a little bit scarred. Mr. Steve is on his way. He will be with us in a few moments from now, and we have a lot to look at today, to be honest. We are going to the agricultural fair in the place where Mr. Steve was raised as a child. All of that coming right after this.
I'm a big boy now.
It is English Addict with you today on a very wet Sunday. We have had so much rain over the past 24 hours. In fact, I will show you now outside. There is the view right now. There isn't much to see because the rain is falling quite heavily. It is what we call a very grey day. But here is someone who is never grey. They are never unhappy. They are never sad. They are never moody. They always have a smile on their face. Yes, you know who it is. It is the one, the only, Mr. Steve.
Hello, beautiful people from across the globe. Welcome once again to our little Sunday rendezvous, we could call it really, when we try to help you learn a bit of English and at the same time we learn something from you on the live stream. Something I've learnt, Mr. Duncan, today is that people are still on holiday a lot. Loretta and Giovanni are in Vilnius enjoying a nice break. Holiday break in a city holiday, city break as we would call it, a city break. I don't know how long they're there, but it sounds like everyone's having holidays. We had a small holiday, we had a nice holiday in Italy, which we've discussed. Christina, of course, is always on a permanent holiday, but Francesca as well has been on holiday. She's been showing us photographs of that. We're insanely jealous. But, you know, one day we'll just globetrot and never come home again.
I like the sound of that, to be honest. So, we are together again. We have a lot to talk about today. We have some happy moments. We also have a little bit of sadness to talk about as well today. And we are going to look at what we did yesterday. We had quite an adventure. We went to the actual place, the actual village where Mr. Steve was raised as a child. We went along to an agricultural show, which, as the name suggests, you might say that there were many things on show, many things being displayed that were connected to agriculture. So we are going to have a little chat about this right now, and we will have a look at some of the sights that we saw yesterday. So first of all, Mr. Steve, we went to a place called Moreton-in-Marsh, and this is a place that is very close to Mr. Steve's heart because it is the place where he was raised. And we went to the Moreton-in-Marsh Agricultural Show. There were many things happening, including, well, there you can see now on the screen, horse riding. Lots of horses were there. Now, these particular ladies are riding the horses in a particular way. Also, there was lots of nature to see as well. Lots of people. There's Mr. Steve, look. You can see him there in his yellow T-shirt. In fact, the reason why he does that is because he likes to be seen easily. And of course, there were lots of lovely tractors, lots of heavy machinery. And you might not realise, but I have quite a fascination for large machinery, big machines. So to say that I was quite excited to see these particular machines is an understatement. I like that one. Look at that one. That looks like it could do some damage. That is an agricultural crusher. It's designed to crush things up. I dread to think. And there you can see, look, a large crowd came out yesterday. Now, we were worried, weren't we, Steve? Because we were worried that the weather was going to be bad. But I don't know how it happened, but the weather stayed okay. We did not have any rain. However, there were many people, and of course there was lots to eat as well. We had some food very expensive food. Can I just say the food was rather expensive? As it normally is at those types of show. And there were many animals. Look, there are some small horses, Mr. Steve, Shetland ponies. There was even a pony race.
Yes, by young children. They were only about 9 years old. I think they were between the ages of 9 and 12. Very brave. There they were, racing on these ponies.
Yes.
So for anyone watching, those are not horses. They were just ponies, just the kids having a go, being very brave. They could have fallen off, but they didn't. So we had but there were lots of events going on.
Some more machines.
There's a big machine,
Look
Mr.
at
Duncan.
that. I think that was the biggest one. Look at that amazing tractor. That really does look like something that would be going around on the moon. But
Giovanni says, "Did you buy a tractor for the garden, for my garden?" Well, yes. Our garden isn't quite that big that it would require a tractor. But it would be fun to have one, wouldn't it? Just have a tractor parked on the lawn. It would look very impressive, I think. I might hire it out.
Look at that.
Yeah, it was... Yes, there were... Oh, look at that, Mr. Duncan. A bit of sheep shearing going on there.
They had a sheep shearing contest.
Yes, so this area, the Cotswolds, is well known for its sheep and wool manufacturing, which used to, not so much now, but there's still a lot of sheep. I think somebody said there's 35 million sheep in the UK, or was it 135 million? Just a lot of sheep in the UK.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of them in Shropshire, and there's a lot in Gloucestershire, but not so much in Gloucestershire now, because it's quite built up.
Mr. Steve, we have the livestock. Look at that. Look at those. Look at the size of those animals. Some of them are quite large. Look at that. They are beautiful. Beautiful animals. Livestock. Now look at that big boy.
Yeah, we call that livestock, which is basically animals. Could be anything. Horses. Livestock, it's to do with farming, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's animals for farming.
It's normally animals raised for milk or meat.
That's it. So cows,
sheep,
pigs.
Yes.
I don't know whether you'd call sheep livestock. You may do.
No, it's all livestock, although this particular type of animal that you're seeing now is often referred to as cattle. So cattle normally refers to bovine animals, or as we like to call them, cows.
So of course what they were doing there, that was the parade, and they you get prizes for the best cow.
Yes. Look at that. Now, I think that's a falcon. Falcon eating a chicken. It's a bit gruesome. I'm sorry if you are eating your lunch at the moment. A little donkey. There were lots of other animals on show. Some very strange coloured sheep. I don't know why they are that colour, but they are very unusual. Oh, Mr. Steve, look. Alpacas.
Oh.
Aren't they cute? They have to be one of the cutest animals. They're very hard to look after, but they are very nice. A lot of people keep them nowadays, don't they? They like to keep alpacas.
They like to retire and keep alpacas.
Here we go. Pigs. Mr. Steve, we have pigs. Well, these are baby pigs. These are piglets.
There's the mother. Taking a well-earned rest.
Yes.
I don't know which breed of pig these are. They're obviously an unusual breed because they've got those spots on them. Unusual markings on them. Usually, you think of pigs as being pink, fairly plain. There's the mother getting excited about something.
That is one big pig.
Yes, and look at those udders, Mr. Duncan.
Trust you.
That's something for the little ones to suckle on.
Yes.
So, there's a word for you. Suckling on the teats of the mother for the milk.
There was also a lot of food on show as well. There was a contest. Who had the best cake? Who had the best quiche? And who had the best flowers as well? Look at those chrysanthemums, Mr. Steve. Aren't they lovely?
They're perfect. Yeah, so this is another traditional thing at an agricultural show is, as Mr. Duncan said, people will grow plants, they will bake cakes and jam. They'll make jam and they'll put them up for prizes, and there'll be a first, second and third prize.
Yeah.
And for the best vegetables. And somebody marks those. They look at the various factors, appearance and shape, and they will mark them.
Now,
there's potatoes being...
This is something we commented about this, because how do you know that a potato is worthy of a prize? Because they all look the same, really, don't they?
There's some leeks and some carrots, and that's celery in the middle there. So there's all sorts of different categories that you can enter. I remember my mother used to enter her jam.
Oh, look at this.
Look at those giant carrots.
Look at the size. Look. Those, I've never seen such big carrots in my life, Steve.
Exactly. You would, if you ate one of those, you'd go a funny colour. So please tell us, do you have, if you're watching this now, do you have these types of shows in your country?
Oh.
Where you have agricultural shows? Please let us know. We'd like to know.
And finally, yes, I couldn't resist having an ice cream. My favourite type of ice cream from the ice cream van, just like a little child. But, look at that. Isn't that lovely? I could just eat one of those right now, to be honest. So there it was. That was yesterday's trip to Moreton-in-Marsh, the place where Mr. Steve was raised as a child. And it was quite interesting, wasn't it?
We used to go every year. There were lots of farmers there. Everyone speaking in a certain accent, the farmer accent. Moreton-in-Marsh, Gloucestershire.
I don't think it's a farmer.
Is how they speak over there.
It's not a farmer accent, though, is it?
Well, it is really. It's a sort of country farmer accent. And when we went to school there, we spoke very... I was, hello, how are you? Yes. Oh, nice to meet you. We were very posh when we moved there because I wasn't born in that area. So they all used to say we were very posh, me and my sister. Because they were, hello, my dear, how are you? Yes, nice to meet you. And we were, hello, yes, nice to meet you. Wonderful. I mean, I used to be very posh when I was young. My accent has, what would you say, mellowed a bit. It's gone a bit more common, although people still say I speak poshly. But it's not compared to when I was younger. I sounded like a little lord.
Yes.
But we had a lovely day. Please tell us, do you have these kind of agricultural shows in your country? And please tell us something about it on the live chat.
Yeah, I know. The other thing I do know is, for example, in the United States, they have a lot of these shows where they put on displays of certain types of animals, especially horses. Now, in the United States, they do like horses very much, keeping horses, watching horses, riding horses, and you might find that there are shows like that in the United States. But we are interested to find out if you have something where you are. Do you have some sort of local show, maybe connected to agriculture or animals, that you have in your area?
Yeah. Tell us. Please tell us.
I was a little bit worried yesterday about the weather, even though we did drive back last night. We drove back in the worst weather that we've ever driven in, ever in our lives. It was awful, wasn't it? The rain was coming down. So we were very lucky yesterday. We went to the show yesterday and it didn't rain at all. But when we drove back last night, the rain was really coming down.
Torrential is the phrase you would use. Torrential rain.
Good.
And unfortunately, because of where that Moreton-in-Marsh is located, there aren't any sort of main motorways that go to it. So we had to sort of go cross country back to where we live here in Shropshire, which meant a lot of sort of twisty roads, pouring rain, no lights on the roads. I had to be very careful. We hit some massive puddles a few times, which scared Mr. Duncan. Water spraying everywhere, but we got back safely, which is the main thing.
It is.
Yeah, so please tell us, have you been to anything like this in your own... I mean, if you're living in a city, you probably won't go, but if you're living out in the country, you may well have these kinds of events. It's the largest one in the UK now, at Moreton-in-Marsh. It was something I've noticed, and we both noticed, is how well organised it was and how nice all the people were, how well behaved everybody was. There was no litter. I mean, everyone was picking up their litter. Nobody was behaving in a drunkard fashion. They had beer and alcohol for sale, but people weren't getting drunk.
No, they
were just there with their families, with their farmer friends, all meeting up. And it's a time for it's a nice time for farmers to meet up with each other, and maybe go around and look at a new tractor they might want to buy, things like that. And it was just it was like a family event, really.
Yes, I agree with you. It was everything was quite lovely. It was, you were walking around and you were very aware that everyone was pleased to be there and see each other. And for many farmers, of course, they are coming towards the end of their main season as they are gathering their crops and doing all of the other things, preparing for winter. So if you own livestock, it is a very crucial time of year because you have to make sure that all of your animals will have food during those long winter months.
Yeah, Marcia says that they have those in Brazil, similar types of in São Paulo. We have festivals similar to this one. They're probably everywhere. They are important, you're right, because it raises the standards of everything, of agriculture and of rearing animals, because even though we all know these animals are ultimately being bred to be slaughtered for meat, there is still a lot of what you sense from the commentary and from all the people there. There is a lot of pride in the way that these animals are reared, and the farmers take great pride in rearing them in the way that they do, disease-free, looking nice, presentable, that they have a nice life when they are alive, that they're not abused in any way. And you can see that in the commentary that you couldn't hear from that, but there's commentary going over the loudspeakers telling you all about the different breeds and about how they're looked after. And this is what people don't often appreciate, I don't think, with farmers, is that they really do care for their animals. Most of them do. Obviously, there's always abuse here and there, but generally, farmers really love their animals and they take care of them, and they really want them to have... They know they're going to be slaughtered, but they want them to have as nice, good a life as possible.
Yeah, it's up to the point where they're killed.
Have a bolt through their heads.
Yeah. Okay, Steve.
But
don't have to go that far.
At least it's quick. But there we go.
Okay, all right, Steve. You made your point. You've got it. We've got it. Of course, not many people, or more people nowadays, are against that type of farming. But as you said yesterday, Steve, if we removed all of those farming techniques, and by that I mean raising animals, there would be no animals around because there would be no reason to actually raise them or keep them.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting situation where if we all started being vegetarian, you would find that the animals around you would slowly vanish. So there would be no cows, no sheep, no piglets running around, no chickens, no hens,
no sheep, nothing.
None of those things. So there would be none of those things because there would be no demand. So people would stop drinking milk, for example. No more dairy cows. So it would change the landscape quite dramatically if everyone suddenly stopped eating meat. Of course, it's not going to happen. I know a lot of people enjoy eating meat. We like it. Where I enjoy a little bit of meat now and again. I think we're having some today, in fact. So I don't think it will ever actually go away. But it is interesting seeing all of that yesterday, and you realise how much work goes in just to rearing or raising one animal. All of the work and effort and attention that you have to give to that one animal to raise it and make sure that it is happy and content. I like that very much. So how did it feel yesterday, Steve, going back and almost reliving a moment from your childhood?
Well, I didn't really feel very much because it's so many years since I went. I mean, probably the last time I went to that agricultural show was probably when I was around maybe 16. So, that's a long time ago. It's over 40 years ago. So it felt exactly the same. All I remember is one thing I would comment is that, and my sister, we went there with my sister as well, and is that in the produce tent where you've got the people are judging the jams and the cakes and the flowers, there used to be many more entries into those competitions. In some of you used to get like the jams. There was just a wall of hundreds of jams that everybody had entered into these competitions, and cakes and flowers everywhere. But not many people are entering these competitions anymore. And I think that's a reflection of the fact that generation that were like to do that are dying out, and the new generations are not taking part in those kind of jam making, cake making competitions.
Yes.
Because it seems like something from the past.
But Steve, can I just say, for some reason, that is a very popular thing, though. Home cooking, baking, these things are huge, but it would appear that it isn't as many people as you think. Because yesterday, and I agree with you, there weren't many things on show, not many cakes, not many jars of jam and things like that. But at least there are some people there who are still doing it.
Still keeping it going. Yes, I think just people haven't got the time now.
No.
To do it.
There's other distractions, many other things that people have to do. We have a lot to talk about today. Now, I don't want to make today's live stream sad, but there are a couple of anniversaries, one that is happening today. It is, of course, the anniversary of the death of Queen Elizabeth today. It happened 2 years ago. Today, on this very day, the 8th of September, it was announced to a shocked nation that the Queen Elizabeth II, had passed away on this date in 2022. And it was a big shock, even though we all kind of knew it was coming. But I still can't believe it's 2 years.
No, and of course in a couple of days' time it'll also be the second anniversary of the death of my mother.
Yes, well,
and of course we all remember these events.
Yes, that's it. Well, that's what I want to mention now, Steve. Steve, just stay with me. Your mother now is on the screen. It's all right, Steve. Steve, don't be sarcastic.
I'm not being sarcastic.
It does
I'm
look
trying
like
to stop myself getting upset, Mr. Duncan.
It is, of course, on Tuesday. Well, talk about ruining a moment. It is on Tuesday, the anniversary of your mum passing, and that's also 2 years ago. So 2 days after the Queen died, your mother passed away as well. So on Tuesday it will be the anniversary of that as well. So another reason why yesterday it was very strange being in the place where you were raised by your family and, of course, by your lovely mum. Now, you mentioned a few weeks ago, I've been very busy finding this particular photograph. You mentioned a photograph of your mother sitting on a motorbike.
This is for you, Giovanni. Are you watching? Are you listening? Carry on, Mr. Duncan.
So, yes, Giovanni, if you joined us at the rendezvous in Italy, we did mention this during one of our meals as well, didn't we? So here it is. Here is the photograph of your mother many, many, many years ago when I think she was still going out with your father before they were married. This picture. And here it is right now. Are you ready, Steve? Look at that.
And Giovanni will recognise that bike immediately, that little motorbike, because it's a Lambretta. And I mentioned that on our rendezvous when we all met up, because Giovanni very kindly gave me a model of that bike, of the Lambretta. And I said at the time that my mother used to ride one around London. That's not London, but she did used to. She used to be on the back of it with my father, and that's the actual photograph of her riding that Lambretta. That's the one she fell off when she was pregnant with me. She fell off in the snow in London, and there we go. And there's the actual model that Giovanni gave us. So thanks again for that. So we finally found the photograph.
Isn't that great?
Can't imagine my mother riding a bike, but she obviously did all those years ago. I wonder what happened to that bike. I don't know. But anyway, there we go.
And also a photograph of us all together as well, Steve. And there we were at one of our favourite places at Lake Vyrnwy in Wales. There's Mr. Steve. There's your mum in the middle, holding her hat on because it was very windy. And of course, I don't know who that other guy is, but he looks a bit mad to me.
Yes, I don't know who he is. He sort of somehow got himself into the picture.
Some lovely memories there of your mother, and it will be 2 years on Tuesday since she passed away, and we still miss her. And she's always with us here in the studio. You may have noticed just behind me. Always there is a little photograph of Mr. Steve's mother, and also my mother is behind me as well. So never, ever forgotten. It is English Addict, and we are here today on a very wet and grey Sunday. I have to say it is pretty miserable. Not in the studio, though. In here, it's happy, it's jolly. Mr. Steve looks fresh and excited today, even though he's a little bit concerned about his vitamin D level for some reason. Mr. Steve, once again, is now thinking about a certain aspect. So his vitamin D level. And I suppose, in a way, Steve, it is a good thing to think about. Because I remember you telling me, I think it was here on the live stream, you told me that a lot of people are lacking or they don't have enough vitamin D in their bodies.
Yes, well, I ended up getting a blood test because of some issues I was having, and the doctor said, I'll test your vitamin D level. That was about a year ago, and it was well below what it should be. And then I did some research into all this, and it turns out that probably at least half of us, if not more of us, are deficient in vitamin D, because unless you go out in the sun, it's impossible to get enough in your diet.
That's a good word, deficient.
Deficient.
Isn't that great?
Means you don't have enough. Technically, it's interesting, vitamin D, it's not technically a vitamin. They call it a vitamin because technically it's not. It's called a vitamin because a vitamin is something that you can't make yourself, whereas you can make vitamin D yourself if you go into the sun. But it's called a vitamin because it's just because that's what it was labelled as many years. But technically it isn't. It's an essential molecule that we need, but you can make it yourself by going into the sun, as we all know. But anyway, so I've been taking vitamin D, vitamin D.
Can I just ask, Steve?
Yes.
Why?
Why
do
what?
we need? Why do we need vitamin D?
Oh, it's important. It's important in a lot of functions in the body, but mainly for calcium balance. It's to do with calcium absorption and having enough calcium in your bloodstream, which is essential. But it also has important immune functions as well, to do with resisting particularly viruses. It's got many functions. I think they now think vitamin D is far more important than they ever thought. But unfortunately, most people seem to be deficient in it. If you don't go in the sun, and if you've got dark skin, the darker your skin, the more chance that you're going to be deficient in vitamin D, because you won't make very much when you go into the sun. So anyway, that's. I don't want to get too technical because I'm not an expert.
No,
but
it's still interesting because it's an interesting aspect of one particular thing. And if there's one thing that people do like to think about, and sometimes maybe they think about it too much,
yes,
is their health. So it is a thing that concerns everyone when you think about it.
I used to constantly, ever since Mr. Duncan's known me, I've always got lots of colds, sore throats. Every winter I get 3-4 bad colds, don't I, Mr. Duncan? I always have done.
Yeah.
And I think, and ever since I've been taking the vitamin D, that hasn't happened. So I think I've always been deficient in vitamin D, because when I go outside, I always put sun cream on, I put a hat on, and you don't realise during the summer months, you're not making enough of this vitamin. And anyway, to cut a long story short, I bought a test kit. You can buy them off Amazon. How accurate it is, I don't know, but I did another test this morning. I had to prick my finger, Mr. Duncan, with a needle and get a little drop of blood and put it into this. They weren't very expensive. Anyway, it's still showing that I don't have enough vitamin D. And I stopped taking the vitamin D in the summer because of the sun. So I'm going to go back on it again and do another test in a month's time and see if I can get it back up to recommended levels.
What I find interesting there as well is even in the summer, it's hard to get the right amount. So maybe even if you have sunshine, maybe you should still be aware that you have to make sure that you have enough vitamin D, and I suppose all the other vitamins as well. Sorry?
You need to be exposed to the sun for at least 15 or 20 minutes. Arms, face, and maybe your legs. Quite a large surface area of your body needs to be exposed to the sun for at least 15 to 20 minutes. And if you've got dark skin, it needs to be even longer than that, apparently.
Yes.
Again, I'm no expert, so don't take my word for it.
No.
Do your own research.
We don't say we are doctors, so don't worry about that outside in YouTube land. However, it is always something that we like to discuss from time to time.
We do. So back on the vitamin D for me.
Well, if you're low, I don't know what I'm going to be. I'm amazed that my bones just don't dissolve completely away.
Well, the thing is, I think you get more sun exposure than I do, because you do tend to get a bit more sun exposure, so we may find you're all right. I'm going to test you later because I've got 2 tests. I'm not having my blood taken out. It's just a little drop, Mr. Duncan.
Is it just a little prick?
Exactly, yes. You've heard that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got to be careful. 15, 20 minutes in the sun, but you don't want to get skin cancer. So,
no. Well, that's it. That's the problem. So you might try to get more sun to get more vitamin D, but then you might damage your skin. So it is very strange.
The thing is, in Europe now, winter's coming in Northern Europe, and we won't be getting any sun exposure, and anything that we made that the liver will only be there for a month, and because it can only store it for a month in our bodies apparently from the sun, and so that'll all be gone by sort of end of October, and then cold and flu season will start. So I want to get my levels built up before then. And apparently you've got to be careful as well, because you've got to take quite a high dose to make any difference. But then again, you've got to be careful because you don't want too much. So anyway, I'm a vitamin D doctor.
Well, you're not.
Giovanni said vitamin D is absorbed through the eyes. I've never heard of that before. No, you make vitamin D when your skin makes it when it's exposed to the sun. You can get it from oily fish like salmon, but you've got to eat an awful lot of it in order to get the recommended daily amount. So apparently you'd need to eat salmon or oily fish probably every day and a lot of it to get enough from diet. So there's only two reliable sources, and that's the sun and a supplement. But do your own research, but that's what I've been doing.
Yes, it is. I just find these things quite interesting sometimes, especially when people talk about them, and it's interesting hearing other people's experiences as well. I'm trying not to cough. Mr. Steve, what's happening on the live chat? It seems very quiet today.
On the live chat, no, it's fine. There's quite a lot. Oh, Beatrice says that her doctor recommended 20 minutes on the forearms. Yep, that's what I've read. So, yeah, you can just expose your forearms for 20 minutes, and that's probably enough. And you could wear gloves on your hands so that you're because that's always a sign, isn't it, of somebody's age, is their skin and how leathery or aged that has become by the sun.
Yes.
So if you cover your face and your hands, then if you're wearing a shirt, no one will see your forearms generally, or your torso, your body. So that's all covered. You might be all wrinkly underneath, but your hands and your face will still look young because you haven't got the damage from the UV rays of the sun. So yeah, keep your face covered and your hands, expose a few bits here and there, get your vitamin D, and it's, you will be not getting colds and flus this winter.
It can certainly help anyway. It can certainly help.
What does Rosa says?
Right, we are here today. English Addict, by the way. It isn't all medical stuff. I thought that was just something interesting to mention because Mr. Steve likes to talk about these things sometimes.
I do.
We have other things to talk about, something very different, in fact. We are going to talk about public transport. Now, last week, a big event took place around here. In this area where we live, we had a new bus service start last week.
How exciting!
Now, it might not sound like a big thing, but the problem is if you live in an area that is far away from the towns and cities, you might slowly feel isolated or cut off from the rest of the world or other people. So those local bus services, public transport in areas in the countryside is actually a very important thing. So that's the reason why people were so excited last week, because now we have a very regular bus service. So before we only had one service that came backwards and forwards. Now we have two separate services. So now it is possible to catch a bus more often. If you want to travel to the big town near here, which is Shrewsbury, it is quite, well, it's near, but it's also far, if that makes sense. So it's not far away, but if you don't have a car, it can feel like a million miles away. So
probably about 20-25 kilometres away, I would say.
Yes. So if you have a car, of course, everything is easy. It's very easy if you have a car. It's no problem. And I thought today we would have a quick look at public transport and see if anyone else out there has their own thoughts about it. So using public transport. Now, first of all, I'm going to say to Mr. Steve, when you lived in your village in Moreton in Marsh, did you use public transport very often?
Yes, I sometimes used the bus. Well, I had to use the school bus. Isn't really public transport,
No.
is it? But I would. My father and mother both drove, so generally we were driven around. If we went shopping, we would go in my father's car, and then later on, my mother learnt to drive and got a small car. But sometimes I would go, like when I was studying for my A levels, I went to a different college, so I went to Cheltenham. So I would take the bus from Moreton to Cheltenham. So I would use public transport for that. I hated it, to be honest, because it took ages to get there. It went round all the little villages. It was so boring, and you'd get hot in the summer because the sun, if you were shining on you. I used to feel a bit sick. I didn't really like going on the bus because it just went round all these little lanes, picking up people. It took ages to get to where I wanted to go.
It's very similar to the one that goes from Much Wenlock to Shrewsbury. So the new service that started last week calls at many places. So I think it takes around 50 minutes to get from Much Wenlock to Shrewsbury, because it will go all around the lanes and stop at many different places, which can be tedious. It might be a little bit boring for those who want to get somewhere in a hurry. But, as I always say, something is better than nothing. So imagine what would happen if you had no public transport around this area. A lot of people would be isolated. They would feel as if they can't go anywhere, which I think is a shame, really.
And what were you going to say, Mr. Duncan?
No, carry on.
I was going to say, yes, so if you were to drive to Shrewsbury from Much Wenlock, it would take you 20 minutes. So the bus takes 50 minutes, you say, Mr. Duncan. So it's a bit longer. But if you've got time on your hands, and let's face it, I think probably in reality, would it be fair to say that most people who used the bus were retired people, elderly people?
Yes.
Or is it a mixture?
I think it's fair to say that elderly people, elderly residents in the village or around the towns, the small villages and small towns in this area, they would definitely appreciate the chance to actually get on a bus and go somewhere else, because as you get to a certain age, you can't drive anymore.
You might not want to drive. You might not be able to afford to run a car. And when you get to retirement age in the UK, which is, well, it used to be 65, it's now 67 for most people, you get free bus, you get a bus pass, so you can go on the public transport for free. If you live in London, you can do that from the age of 60, I believe, but everywhere else you've got to wait till the official retirement age, which is different now for different people depending on when you were born. It used to be 65, but for me, for example, and Mr. Duncan, we'll have to wait till we're 67. Then we'll get the state pension, and then we can go on the buses for free, which will be very exciting. And I think I will do that, Mr. Duncan.
Yes. Well, we were saying the other day, because when we went to Italy way back in June, and we took a train from the place where we were staying in Rome, and we went all the way to Pisa, and it was a wonderful trip, a wonderful smooth ride on the train in Italy. So I have to say it was good fun sitting with Mr. Steve, because normally we don't take public transport together, do we, Steve? I don't think, since we've met all those years ago, 35 years, I think we've only used public transport together maybe 4 or 5 times in all of that period, because of course Mr. Steve has a car. He drives, I don't. So that's why I have to use the public transport in this area. So if Steve is out working, I have to take the bus.
And you always did when we lived in Wolverhampton. You
Yes.
took the bus everywhere to go to work. It wasn't a very nice experience for you in the city environment, because you had lots of nasty incidents with not very nice people getting on the bus.
Yeah.
In going through rough areas. When we say rough areas,
when we say rough areas, we mean Wolverhampton. The whole of Wolverhampton.
Okay, the whole of Wolverhampton.
The whole of Wolverhampton is just a rough area, not a very nice place to live.
Unless you're in Tettenhall.
Which is why we now live in Much Wenlock and not Wolverhampton.
But here in the country, Much Wenlock, Shrewsbury, you don't get trouble on the buses generally. I haven't heard of it, but yes, if you've got time, it's very cheap to travel. It's been quite a controversial subject for a number of years, public transport, for people in rural areas. And Anarchy actually touches on this with one of the comments he's made. Public transport has deteriorated a lot for people living in the countryside. In the cities, it's fine, because there's lots of buses everywhere and trains.
Well, it's more a case of there being lots of people using the buses.
That's it. But for the rural areas, if you want to get anywhere quickly, then you really have to have a car. You have to have your own transport, because as Mr. Duncan's pointed out, if you need to go somewhere which is a relatively short distance quickly, it's going to take a long time in public transport. Fine if you're retired and you're just going out for the day, you might be going with friends, go on the bus, you can have a chat. But if you want to go somewhere quickly and reliably, then you need to have your own car. And the nearest train station here is, 20-25 minute drive. You've got to drive to the train station in a car. It's a long way away. So, getting about for people in the country is quite difficult, because train services used to be there used to be many more train routes, but they were all shut down in the 60s.
Yes, including here in Much Wenlock. So I mentioned this last week, that we do have, or we did have, a railway station. We still have it, but now it's someone's house. They live there, but there are no railway lines anymore going through Much Wenlock. But that was also closed down. I think that was the late 1960s. Much Wenlock lost its railway station. So it is a common situation around the rural areas where there is very little public transport. Of course, when we think about public transport, we often think of certain types of public transport. For example, as we've mentioned already, the bus services. You can have regular bus services. Sometimes the bus service might not be very regular. For example, round here. So during the day, there would only be the occasional bus service. But now they've introduced a second service. They are now more regular, because 2 different services are running. So it is much easier to catch a bus. And of course, we think of places like London, don't we, Steve? But you can also think of places like Birmingham, Manchester. They have very good infrastructure. So that means there are many trains, many buses. They are connected between one place and another. So when you think of large cities, you never really worry too much about public transport, because it is always provided and there are always many alternatives. So if one thing isn't working very well, which happens quite often here in the UK, you can always use a different type of public transport. So we often think of buses, and I suppose the bus is the most regular one or the most common used of all the types of public transport. Of course, it does cost a lot of money, especially here, because the bus services here, Steve, are private, aren't they?
Yes, that's right. So they're not run by the council. They're run by private companies. I presume the council gives them a licence to do that. But yes, I mean, how much does it cost for you to go between Much Wenlock and Shrewsbury? So that's probably about 12 miles. I don't know, is that 20 kilometres, something like that?
Well, yes, it's about 12, 13 miles. It costs £2 both going there, £2, and coming back. It is also £2. So overall, £4, which is pretty amazing.
About €5, something like that.
So it is amazing that just for £4 you can get on a bus, go all the way to Shrewsbury, do your shopping, see your friends, have some social activity, and then catch the bus back for another £2. So it is probably, in fact, I know for a fact, it is cheaper, or the cheapest way of getting around. You could, of course, get a taxi, and that is a whole nother subject, because taxis these days, Steve, I was very surprised how much it costs nowadays to use a taxi cab just from one place to another. So if I wanted to go from here, our house, all the way to Shrewsbury, it would cost one way £23. That's just one way.
To go, about 20 kilometres.
Yes. But what I'm saying is the difference between those two things. So you can take a bus for £2 or call a taxi and they will take you there, but it will cost you £23, which of course is overall the whole journey will then be £46 just for taking a taxi to one place.
About €50, something like that.
Yes, incredible.
More
so
than
it is
that, in fact.
But
then
an expensive.
Taxes were very expensive in Italy, Mr. Duncan, but as we discovered when we were there.
Yes, well, I think that's more about the fact that we were having to use the taxis. So I think that's a very different situation. But here now, because of the price of everything, getting a taxi cab anywhere is expensive, incredibly expensive. So I am glad, I have to say, I do love the fact that around here, Steve, we do have the bus service. Even though it's still not perfect, it isn't perfect, but at least it's better than having nothing at all. Then, of course, we look at the other type of public transport, the one that I really do love using, although I haven't used it for a long time. I don't really use trains anymore. When I lived in Wolverhampton, we used to use the train quite often. I used to travel between Wolverhampton and Stafford, where I was raised, or from Wolverhampton to Birmingham and other parts of the UK. But I haven't used a train for a long time. We have a couple of railway stations, but they're very far away from here, so they are not easy to get to. So we do have a train service in this area, but there aren't many trains running, and the stations are very far away. We have one in Shrewsbury and another one in Telford. So those probably are the nearest train stations.
Yes, people say to me, because often I have work meetings that might be in a city somewhere, could be in London, could be Manchester, Sheffield, Nottingham, wherever we might have a work meeting there. And often people say, well, why don't you go by train? Because if it's in the centre of the city, if it's London, yes, I would always take the train, because trying to get to a big city like London by driving is well, it's difficult to drive there for a start. There probably won't be anywhere to park. If you do, it'll be very expensive, and then you'll have to pay all these congestion charges on top of that. But if I'm going to Birmingham, any other city, I will always drive, because for us, it'll be quicker, far quicker for me to drive. You would think the train would be quick, but the problem is I've got to get to the train station. That's at least 20 minutes drive. And then I've got to park the car and allow for that and get the tickets. So I've got to allow at least half an hour before I even get onto a train. And then the local train at Telford, if you want to go anywhere, you've got to change at least once to get a train onto a main line. So there's another delay. So I can always drive, even if there's congestion. I can pretty much always drive to any other city apart from London. It's quicker for me to drive than it is to catch a train. If we lived right near a train station on a main line, yes, that would be fine. But we don't. So I think always drive because it's quicker.
Yes, I think it's fair to say that if you live in a place like London, you quite often the areas you live in will be very close to some sort of public transport. And that's probably one of the reasons why in London they do punish car drivers quite harshly for various reasons. If they drive in a certain place or if they drive around in a certain type of vehicle, they are often punished. But cities often have a very good form of transport, and I suppose one that they often talk about when we think of big cities, maybe Paris, for example, or London, and we often talk about the metro. So the metro system is used in many large cities. Some of the metro systems are above the ground, and quite a lot of them are beneath the ground. For example, you have the underground system in London, although not all of the underground systems are underground. I know that's confusing, but some of them are underground sometimes, and at other times they are above the ground. So you might find sometimes that those things can vary. But I would say the metro. Now, we had a great time, didn't we, Steve, when we were in Paris a couple of years ago, and we found it amazing just how easy it is to use the metro system in Paris.
Yes, we did. It was easy to buy the tickets, and in a city, you want good public transport because you want to try and reduce the pollution caused by vehicles, particularly diesel-powered cars, which it's not very nice to be breathing all those fumes in a city. So I can see why the move to discourage people from driving cars in a city is a positive thing, because it's going to improve the air quality for everybody. But it doesn't matter so much if you live in the country. But yeah, we found it quite enjoyable. I remember years ago, and most cities have good transport systems, and Italy did as well. Nitram says that we have to wait for teleportation to work, like they did in Star Trek. It's already been done with a single particle, apparently. I didn't realise that. They can teleport a single particle. I didn't know that, Nitram, that they'd perfected that. I'd like to know more about that.
It doesn't sound like they perfected it. It's just one particle.
Yeah, one particle. We've only got another several trillion more to transport a whole body. I'm sure they'll get it done one day.
Anyway, we're a long way from that. Also, in London, Now, I went to London a few months ago. I even made a lesson in London, and I was amazed. I forgot how much fun you can have travelling around London on the metro system. So you can get in one place, go around, come out the other place. You don't have to keep walking around London trying to find your way around.
The underground is this, you mean, Mr. Duncan?
Yes, the underground system, the metro. So the metro is basically the underground. So in Paris they call it the metro, here we call it the underground, or of course the tube. One of the first ever underground systems to be built. Although I do remember the debate that we had about whether Paris was the first or London was the first. I always keep thinking London was the first place, but I'm sure someone will correct me on that one. So I was amazed how easy it is, and of course these days you don't even need tickets. You don't have to have a ticket. You just have your credit card or your debit card, and you just walk through the gate, boop. And then when you get at the other end, you leave, you do the same thing, and then it will work out how much to charge you for your journey. So I love that. I think it's amazing. So I was quite impressed by that, if I was honest. It was a really, really good way of getting around.
We still had to buy tickets, actual physical tickets, when we were in Paris. You don't have to do that in London Underground anymore.
Well, I think even that's changed now.
Maybe that's changed now.
I think you can just use it in a very similar way. So these wonderful types of technology where you don't have to queue. I used to hate waiting. You had to wait in a queue, especially here in the UK. If there's one thing we love doing here in England, Steve, it's queuing behind each other, waiting in a long line.
Well,
I used to hate that.
I wouldn't say we like doing it. We're just very compliant when it comes to queues in the UK. People will be quite well behaved in a queue and wait their turn. And that's not always the case in other countries. We are known for our discipline in queues.
Yeah.
And not upsetting people by jumping the queue.
But anyway, my point was it's much easier nowadays. You don't need the queue. You don't have to wait. You can just go straight through and get on your train. Of course, it also allows you to speed up your journey as well, because you don't have to hang around waiting to buy a ticket. So I thought that was an interesting subject to briefly talk about, because it is something that more people rely on than we realise. I think it's very easy to forget that there are many people who rely on buses and trains so they can get around in their day-to-day lives. So there it was. And we have another subject still to come. We are going to talk about saying the wrong thing. Sometimes you might upset a person by what you say. Maybe you use the wrong phrase, or you say something in the wrong way. So we are looking at that in a few moments. From now, I think we'll take a quick break, and then we will be back with more English Addict. Keep it right here. Please don't go away. There is still lots more to come up today. English Addict is with you today. It is myself, Mr. Duncan, and him over there. That's Mr. Steve, sitting in his comfortable corner. We mentioned public transport a few moments ago, and we were last night hanging around the railway station in the place where Mr. Steve used to live, and I couldn't resist filming a train as it arrived and departed. So here it is. So this is the train last night arriving. This is the 8:56 going to London Paddington, and it came along and it stopped at the station, and I have to say the modern trains are quite amazing. They really do look quite incredible.
I used to walk home. There used to be a disused railway line that ran in parallel to that particular train line, and I used to walk home down this old disused rail track. I used to cross over the bridge that we were standing on there from the school, and I would walk home along this disused railway line, and thankfully I was never attacked.
Oh, well, why would you?
Well, you know what they say now about children walking home on their own. Parents don't like to let the children do that anymore.
Yeah. Fortunately, people aren't jumping out of bushes all over the place, kidnapping kids.
Well, they weren't back in the 1970s. Maybe they were. I don't know.
I think they were. I don't think it's ever not been a thing. I think it
Can I just say something quickly about the two Giovannis on there? We've got Giovanni Rivetti and Giovanni Romano. I think I got the two of you mixed up earlier when Duncan showed the picture of the photo of my mother on the Lambretta. It was Giovanni Romano, of course, that we met up with as part of our group in Italy, who gave me that little model Lambretta. So if you are still watching, or if Laurie's watching, if you go back 10-15 minutes, you'll be able to see a picture of my mother on her Lambretta if you didn't catch that earlier. That's all I wanted to say, Mr. Duncan.
That's okay. Well, it is sometimes confusing when people have the same name. I'm just glad that everyone isn't called John, or else we would have a really hard time. Mr. Steve, when you speak to people in your job, when you talk to people in a social situation, it is possible sometimes to say the wrong thing or maybe upset someone. And that's what we're talking about for the next few minutes up until the end of today's live stream. Eat your words is the subject. It is possible to say the wrong thing. Now, in this situation, Steve, we are talking about saying the wrong thing, but you don't actually mean to say the wrong thing. So this is something that is done unintentionally, not intentionally. So there is a very, very big difference between those two events. In this sense, what has been said causes offence or a problem. And let's face it, these days, Steve, you do have to be careful what you say. You do. You can offend anyone at any moment, even if it's something that might seem trivial or small, or maybe something that you just want to say because that's what you are thinking or feeling. But it is possible to upset people, especially nowadays. An innocent comment might upset someone. So I'm sure in your day-to-day life, Mr. Steve, have you ever said something or done something, normally through speech, that has maybe upset someone, or maybe a person misunderstands what it is you are actually saying?
Yes, I remember when I was quite young, I upset somebody, a friend of mine, and we weren't friends after that because I couldn't convince her at the time. When I had my first car, I took my friends out for a drive in the car, and we had 3 people in this car. It was a very old car. It was very slow at the time, and I remember I had a particular friend. These were student friends of mine, and one was, let's just say, she was quite overweight. That was fine. She was a good friend, not an issue. But I just happened to say they were all in the car, and I said they said, "Oh, do you like this car? Oh, it didn't drive very well." And I just said very innocently, I said, "Oh yes, but it doesn't go as fast with all this weight in the car." Now, I didn't mean her specifically. I meant the fact that there were 4 people in the car, and I could tell that with 4 people in the car was slower. But she took great offence at this and thought that I was directing it at her specifically, and I wasn't. And she never forgave me for that comment. But it was not deliberate. I just said the wrong words. I didn't think of what I was saying at the time that she might take it personally, and I just meant all the weight of all of us in the car. And it wasn't, I didn't even know there was a problem until somebody said to me about an hour later, "Oh, do you realise you upset Julie?" I think that was her name. And I said, "Oh, how? What do you mean?" "By the comment you made." But I didn't mean that. Anyway, she never spoke to me after that. Somebody upset me the other day, Mr. Duncan. Not upset me, but they said the wrong thing to me.
Yes, but I think that was intentional.
Let's say it wasn't. But I mean, if you meet somebody, this particular person, it was a neighbour. I hadn't seen them for a long time. And they said, "Oh, hello, Stephen." And I hadn't probably seen this person for maybe 9 months, 6 months or 9 months. And they said, "Oh, hello. Oh, you've lost weight. You've lost weight, haven't you? Are you all right?" And I thought, that's not what you say to somebody if you haven't seen somebody for a long time. You say, "Hello, how are you? How's life?" You wouldn't say, "Hello, oh, you've put on weight," or "Hello, oh, you've lost weight, haven't you?" Of course, the classic one is to say to a lady who isn't pregnant, sorry. Let's start again. Oh, no, if you say to somebody, a lady who might look like she's pregnant, and you might say, "Oh, congratulations," and it turns out they're not pregnant, they've just put on weight, that can cause offence. That's a very, not wouldn't say common, but it's something that has been mentioned as a faux pas, as a comment that you make without thinking, is that you assume that somebody is pregnant and maybe they've just put on weight.
That's it, yes. Okay, Steve.
So you've got to be careful what you say to people.
But the thing is, I think anyone who makes a personal comment about your appearance or your weight is intending to get some sort of response, because it is a very direct thing to actually mention. Anyway, I've got to move on with this subject. Maybe they misunderstand or take it the wrong way. So perhaps, maybe Mr. Steve, maybe you misunderstood the comment, even though I don't think you did. I don't think you did misunderstand it. I think that was a very personal thing to say, but you can sometimes take things the wrong way. It is possible for a person to misunderstand what is being said. So you take something as an offence. You feel offended or upset, even though that person did not mean to upset you. So it is possible to misunderstand what someone has said. Something said as a joke might be taken seriously. So again, and I think this is a good point to make, it is possible sometimes to make a joke. And you have to make sure you choose the moment or the people with whom you make the joke with, because sometimes it might be taken seriously or take it the wrong way. So I think you do have to be... Now, can I just say, Mr. Steve is very good at saying things as a joke, but sometimes your jokes seem intentionally rude, even though you don't mean to be rude. Does that make sense?
Yes, I do tend to make jokey comments and not realise that they could be offensive to people or could upset them. I do tend to do that. And of course, for all you watching Learning English, what I often find for people who are learning English and they want to say something to me is that because the vocabulary, obviously it's not your native language, so you wouldn't be expected to have a good vocabulary, although a lot of you do on here, of course, is that you might use words or phrases that could be misinterpreted. So sometimes I see comments and it's just through lack of vocabulary that you're saying things in a certain way. But of course, if it's the written word, it's easy to misunderstand it. But if I was talking to you face to face, I would be able to get the real intention of what you mean and whether you were being offensive or not from the expression on your face, because our expressions tell us a lot.
Yes.
The non-verbal way of communicating tells us a lot about our intention, about what we're saying. So that's very important. Beatrice says, and this is quite funny, in connection with what I just said, that I've often given up my seat on a bus to somebody who I thought was pregnant, and it turns out they weren't. Yeah. So you could say, "Oh, you can have my seat," because you would give up in polite society. You would give up if the bus was full or the train was full and a pregnant woman got on, you would give up your seat to a pregnant woman. But Beatrice says that she's done that, and it turns out that person wasn't pregnant at all. So you could offend somebody like that, couldn't you?
I suppose as long as you don't say anything afterwards. So maybe you're just being polite. Maybe you think that person might be a little bit tired, or maybe they're carrying a large shopping bag. But as long as you don't say anything else, as long as you don't say, when is your baby due? When is it coming? Is it going to be long? And they might look and say, I'm not pregnant. Why are you saying I am pregnant? I'm not. Why? Do I look as if I'm pregnant? So,
I have said that to girls before. Oh, congratulations. No, I'm not pregnant. And then, I've offended them. But that's a common one. Thank you for your comment, Giovanni. And Loretta says about you, which I'm sure you've seen the comment, that Giovanni doesn't give a fig about saying something wrong. I've lived with him for 30 years, so I know. If you don't give a fig about something, that means you don't care. You don't care what you say, you just say it. You're not probably being offensive. If you don't give a fig, it means you don't give a damn or you don't care.
That's it.
Isn't that right, Mr. Duncan? You're not worried. See, that's one thing I realised when we met Giovanni. He's very relaxed, doesn't worry about what he says or does. He's just himself. And that's I always respect and I always admire people who can just be themselves in company, because they're not worrying about what they think, whether they upset anyone. They're just being themselves. And that is an admirable quality, I think. I mean, sometimes, yes, you can get yourself into trouble. I mean, Mr. Duncan is somebody who always tends to be himself. You are like this. You don't put on airs and graces. You don't think, I won't say that in case I offend somebody. I won't behave in that way. You just are yourself.
Mm.
No self-consciousness. I'm very self-conscious all the time. Not so much as I was when I was younger, and I get that from my mother. My mother was always very self-conscious, worried what people would think about what you say, about what they would say. But you're not, Mr. Duncan. You're not at all, nor is Giovanni.
Well, you just mentioned Giovanni, and when I met Giovanni, I said to him, "Are you my twin?" Because we look very similar. We're very, very tall, and we seem to have very similar personalities as well. Even some of our habits were very similar.
Spontaneous, no self-consciousness, which is a positive thing.
You
sometimes you can get yourself into... Because Mr. Duncan, you see, let's just say Mr. Duncan and I were brought up in different family environments.
Yeah.
For example, I would never lick my knife.
Well, that's not... But that's not actually correct. You see what you're saying now. See, that isn't being yourself. Being yourself is just being your natural self. That's a bad habit. So actually has nothing to do with it. What I would say, Steve.
Well,
what I would say is my family was open, and that my mum and dad would often show affection to each other. And I would sit with my family, and my mum and dad would have their arms around each other, and they'd sometimes have a little cuddle while they were watching TV, and they never forced anything onto us, any sort of way of thinking or any suppression. So I think that's the difference.
Yes.
Whereas your family was the opposite. Everything was closed and tight, and no one ever spoke when they shouldn't speak, and all opinions were kept inside. So I think that's the big difference. But I know what you mean about licking the knife. But I think a lot of people do that. They normally do it when no one is looking. The only difference is I do it in the middle of a crowded restaurant.
I think it depends on your career, what career you're doing. Obviously, if you're going to be a diplomat, you've got to be careful what you say.
Yes.
And how you behave. And in my job in sales, largely I don't want to upset my customers, so I've got to be measured in what I say to a certain extent, because I want them to buy something off me. But if you're in a profession, for example, where you're in demand, people are coming to you've got a skill that people want, and they probably can't go anywhere else for it, then maybe you can be more yourself.
Yes.
I think it's to do with your character and the way you were brought up.
If you're doing a job where you have to carry out a certain thing in a certain way, then that's what you have to do. So you can't really be a diplomat and swear and be rude, because then you're not being a diplomat. So I suppose in that sense it's a little bit different. But from an individual point of view, where a person is just themselves, for example, I have to stand in the street talking to myself into a microphone. So Steve is not so comfortable doing that, whereas with me it's very easy to do. I don't really worry about it too much because I have to, because if I worried about it, then I wouldn't be able to do it. So it is an interesting thing. Certain comments about a person's appearance, as Mr. Steve said earlier, you can, of course, make comments about someone. Quite often, even flattery can get you into trouble. Even if you say something about a person and you think you are being nice to them, they still might be offended because you are choosing to point out something about their appearance, even if it's complimentary. So this is the problem nowadays, Steve. Even a compliment can get you into trouble. It's quite strange, isn't it?
Yes, you can. You can say something, that dress is very slimming. But that other person might say, well, what, are you saying I'm looking fat? Did I look fat before, did I? I think a lot of it as well depends on how well they know you, how you're feeling at the time as well. So somebody can say something to you one day, they can say the same thing another day, and if you're in a bad mood yourself, or if something's upset you, you might be more prone to taking that comment personally and letting it go over in your mind and things like this. But
Well, what I mean also is just even if you make a compliment nowadays, it could be seen as offensive because it might be seen as predatory, or maybe if a man just makes a very simple comment to a woman, maybe, "Oh, you look lovely today. You look very nice today." Even that could be taken as offensive and upsetting because you are just saying something to them about their appearance. So that is the strange age that we are now living in. We are often cautious about what we discuss with other people. So I suppose in general conversation, there are certain topics that are often avoided, such as politics, religion, and I suppose world events, which quite often take in those other two things. So world events quite often will refer to one or both of those other subjects. So I think generally speaking, if you are talking amongst people you don't know very well, we often say that it is a good idea to stay away from those actual topics.
Religion and politics, yes, because you can very easily get into arguments. These are subjects which often people have very deep-seated opinions on, and it's very easy to trigger upset in somebody. Here's a good word, Anarchy. He has said, do you use the phrase measure your words in English? Yes, we do. To measure your words, or if you speak in a measured way, it means you're thinking very carefully about what you say and the way you say it and the words you use, in order maybe not to take offence, or to make sure that you really are expressing yourself in the way that you're thinking and wanting that other person to understand. Yes, it just means it doesn't necessarily mean correct use of English. It just means that you are using your words very carefully so as to get across what you want to say in a way that doesn't cause misunderstanding or upset to that other person. So typically, if you were a diplomat or a diplomatic person, your words would always be very measured, very carefully thought out. Politicians do the same thing, of course.
Yes. Well, that's a whole different subject altogether. You might reveal something that was being kept secret, of course. You might say something. You might reveal a secret. Maybe you accidentally let out a secret. Maybe there is a birthday party that is being arranged for your friend, and you say, "Oh, by the way, I'm free for the birthday party," but you say it in front of the person who is going to have the surprise given to them. So you might accidentally reveal something that is secret or hidden away. So it is possible to do that. We can say that you have put your foot in it. If you put your foot in it, it means you have made a terrible mistake. You have said something or done something. Quite often this relates to speech. When a person speaks or says something, you put your foot in it.
Yes, you might be in a group of friends and somebody's said to you, "Oh, I'm pregnant," or "But don't tell anyone else." Or they might say, "Oh, I've got some exciting news. We're getting married, but I don't want to announce it to everybody yet." Or "I've got a new job. I'm just telling you. Don't tell anyone else." And then you accidentally mention it in a group of people. "Oh, of course you won't be here for long, are you? Because you've got your new job." Or you know, you might give it. We all do this, don't we? Somebody gives us a secret, tells us in confidence. tells us something in confidence. That means they don't want you to tell other people, and we accidentally let that information out without thinking.
But
put your foot in it, or as Nitram has said here, spill the beans is a slightly different expression, isn't it? You spill the beans
is just revealing something to people.
You're revealing something. You're being forced into revealing something.
Yes.
Come on, spill the beans.
So, can I just say now, never tell a secret to Mr. Steve. Mr. Steve is terrible at keeping secrets. Look, your face is amazing. I'm sorry, but that face you just did there was very funny. I wasn't expecting that.
I'm not very good at keeping secrets, but if it's serious, I can keep the information to myself. But the thing is, I mean, when people tell you personal things about themselves, they always assume that you will tell your partner. If, for example, somebody said to me, we're getting married, or I've lost my job or something, please don't tell anyone. You automatically assume that they know you're going to tell your partner. Because everybody tells their partners everything, don't they? I mean, I tell Mr. Duncan everything if I hear something about somebody. I wouldn't necessarily tell other people, but people always assume that you're going to tell your partner some secret bit of information. I think that's generally assumed.
Yes. We can say that you have let slip. To let slip is to say something or reveal something that you shouldn't have. We can say that you have let the cat out of the bag. To reveal something, maybe you reveal a secret, or maybe something that was going to be a surprise. You let the cat out of the bag. We can also say that you opened your big mouth. And I think this is a common one in British English. Why did you have to open your big mouth? We will describe a person who is not good or not very good at keeping secrets as having a big mouth. We can also say that you put your foot in your mouth. That means you have said something that you shouldn't have said. You've upset someone. You've offended them. You have put your foot in your mouth. Friends.
Thank you, Beatrice. Yes, go on.
Friends often say cruel things to each other as banter. Now, this is a very British word. We often use this word to mean jokes or things that are said between people who are familiar with each other, work colleagues or close friends. Banter is normally things that are said that you normally wouldn't say to a stranger or a person you met for the first time. So you might give your friends nicknames that are slightly offensive, but they don't mind because you all know each other. So
and you might criticise somebody's appearance. You might laugh and say, if someone's wearing a stripy top shirt, you might say, "Oh, have you got your pyjamas on? I see you've come out in your pyjamas."
Yes.
Or you might say, like somebody said to me the other week, who knows me quite well, last week. They actually did offend me at the time, but it was probably a joke. They said that they'd gone to have their hair cut and they'd taken too much off at the barber's. It was a man. And then he turned to me and said, "Oh, when are you going to get a haircut, Steve?" And laughed, and everybody else laughed because obviously I haven't got any hair. But, you can say those sort of jokes when you know somebody well, and everybody's sort of in on the joke, because then as long as you can say something funny back, and it's all a bit of banter, it's a bit of to and fro. We're taking the mickey out of each other. We're having a joke at other people's expense, but it's all friendly. We're not trying to offend.
I've got to say, it's amongst people who are familiar with each other or they are in an environment where they all know that each person can say those things. So that's when we normally talk about banter. So you don't say those things to a stranger or a person you don't know very well, because they might become angry and do something to you. So it is interesting how that can almost go against, it pushes against those rules. To speak openly by making jokes is banter. We talk about talking or joking with each other in a situation where we are all comfortable and relaxed. Talking of which,
can I say something quickly? Yeah, Giovanni has put a phrase up here, which is interesting because it's very different to the phrase we have in the UK. The tongue hurts more than the sword.
Oh.
So the implication of that phrase is that the words that people say to you can often be more painful psychologically than maybe, a sword getting physically attacked. But we've always had a phrase. I always grew up with this phrase, and you probably did, Mr. Duncan, and it's still used now. Sticks and stones can hurt my bones, but words can never hurt me.
Right.
Is a phrase that parents say to their children if they get upset because somebody said something, another child has upset them or something.
Yeah.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But as you get older, you actually learn that that's not really true. Words really can hurt you.
Yes.
And they can have a long-lasting effect. So I think the phrase that the Italians are using, that Giovanni Rivetti has put on there, is actually more accurate, because we know that bullying is often verbal and not just physical. And what people can say, particularly now in social media, people can get really upset by what is said, spoken or written. And so I think actually that phrase that I grew up with, I never really understood it, because I always did used to get upset when people said things to me, laughed and joked at me in a hurtful way. So, yeah, we're going to check out that phrase that I grew up with.
Maybe from another point of view, a person can be too sensitive about what people say to them. So it is possible also to be too sensitive, where you are just offended and hurt by everything people say to you. And so maybe you might be too sensitive. You feel easily upset or offended by what people say. Anyway, Steve,
we've got to go.
It's almost time to say goodbye. I did start a little bit later today, so that's the reason why we've gone over past the hour, because I was about 7 minutes late today, for which I apologise. I'm not going to tell you why I was late, but let's just say I had to sit down and consider something for a short while. We are back together next week, live every Sunday. Don't forget, you can join us live every Sunday from 2 p.m. UK time is when we are with you next. And of course, during the week, there will be some new lessons. There are many new lessons. I've been so busy over the past few weeks making lots of new material. It is keeping me very occupied indeed. Thank you, Mr. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. And Loretta and Giovanni, enjoy the rest of your holiday, and anyone else that's on holiday, enjoy the rest of your holiday too, and look forward to seeing you all again next week.
Mr. Steve will be back next week. Thank you, Steve.
Bye.
There he goes. Mr. Steve is now leaving the studio. Guess what he's going to do now? He's going to go into the kitchen. He's going to make a cup of tea, because my throat is very dry after speaking for the past 2 hours and 10 minutes. I will see you again next Sunday, and of course we do have lots of new lessons coming during the week as well. This is Mr. Duncan saying thank you very much for watching. If you like this, please give me a lovely like. You can watch this again. Hopefully later on the captions will be available as well. You can watch this again with captions. Maybe you are doing that already, in which case I hope it is helpful. This is Mr. Duncan in the birthplace of the English language on a very dull and murky Sunday, saying thanks for watching, see you soon, take care of yourself, enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a super duper week as well. And of course, you know what's coming next. Yes, you do. Take care of yourself, keep that smile upon your face. And ta-ta for now. See you later. Have fun.